Live from Washington, I'm Aisha Tanzim and you're watching Access Point. Few politicians are as controversial or invoke such strong feelings of either admiration or dislike as Narendra Modi, the Chief Minister of the Indian state Gujarat and the Prime Ministerial candidate for the Bharatiya Janata Party in the upcoming Indian elections. Known as a Hindu nationalist, he is blamed for the communal violence in Gujarat in 2002, in which over 1,000 Muslims were killed, and credited for the economic growth of the state. If he becomes the next Prime Minister of India, what would that mean for India's image and foreign policy in the region and worldwide? Let's find out from our guests. Joining me in the studio is Dr. Walter Anderson, a South Asia expert working at Johns Hopkins University. Dr. Anderson has served as a senior State Department official in South Asia. Dr. Anderson, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let me make a minor correction. Mr. Narendra Modi is blamed for not doing enough or not making the police do enough.
I just wrote that here.
Exactly. He's not blamed for instigating the violence. He's blamed for not making the police do enough. And some say it's an allegation that it was a wink and a nod that he told police to let people take out their anger. But again, it's an allegation. It hasn't been proven. So with Mr. Modi being as divisive as he's alleged to be, what do you think will it do for India's image worldwide?
Well, that is an issue that he has to face and his team around him will have to face, because that is an issue, of course. It's an issue within India, within the region, and internationally. However, having said that, he has run a spectacularly good campaign and one that has really focused on domestic issues and growth in a way that has caught the imagination of people all over the country. I would not imagine that you and I would have been talking about this 4 months ago, because I would have assumed that he just wouldn't have a chance for something like this. But it appears he has aroused sufficient support in the country that he does have a chance.
So now that we know that he might have a chance, what would it mean for the regional parties in India? I know that a 17-year-old ally of BJP, Bharatiya Janata Dal United, has said goodbye to them.
Indian politics are a strange animal. It all depends on how many seats the Bharatiya Janata Party gets in the 543-member parliament. It's usually been argued that if it gets 180 to 200 of those seats, it will attract allies.
Right.
Politicians in India, parties want to be close to power, and that is a major factor in what will be a coalition government. There's no doubt it will not get a majority. No party will. Everyone agrees to that.
And the last couple of governments have been
coalition governments, and so will the next one. So a lot depends on how large a number of seats that the BJP gets. If it gets 180 to 200, you're going to find that there probably will not be a huge problem getting allies. If it gets less than that, there will be. Okay,
now that's what happens within India. What happens outside India? Now, we know that the U.S. revoked his visa, Mr. Modi's visa, to U.S. in 2005. They refused to give him a diplomatic visa. The European Union, in an unofficial capacity, have boycotted him until recently when some met them in January, some members in Delhi. And Britain also was one of the countries that was very critical of him. What does it mean for India's image abroad?
It is an issue that he will have to face. And it was an issue that a prior BJP Prime Minister, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, had to face as well. It didn't seem to have worked against him all that much, and much depends on what Mr. Modi does as Prime Minister. If the focus is on growth, and there is substantial growth, I can guarantee you that all the countries that you just mentioned will be there hoping to get more business with India.
But with Mr. Vajpayee, he didn't have the specter of riots in Gujarat or something similar over his head.
That's true, but he was BJP and the first one. And he sort of broke, the mold on not having a BJP. Many people thought you would never have one from that party, but you did.
You did.
And he was that. So in a sense, it is not all that unique anymore that you have a BJP person, because you've had 2 terms as Prime Minister with Atal Bihari Vajpayee. But yes, it isn't that is an issue that Indian diplomacy will have to face. In that context, though, I've been following his campaign. He has been extremely careful in his campaign to stay away from communal questions. He's focused on development and elimination of poverty. And even when sort of questioned closely on this issue, he has been, has kept that at a distance. My guess is the same is going to be true as he addresses issues regionally and internationally.
That said, because economic growth is his strong point, and ever since he became the chief minister of Gujarat the second time, he's focused on that image of himself, and some say has tried to rebrand himself. But he hasn't shown himself to be very good. I mean, I'll quote a Reuters interview that created quite an uproar in India. When he was asked about the killing, he said, and since it's such an incendiary topic, I'll quote exactly, if someone else is driving a car and we're sitting behind, even then, if a puppy comes under the wheel, will it be painful or not? Of course it is. There's an uproar in India.
I saw that. To be quite frank, I don't think he meant anything nefarious by that. It was perhaps an unfortunate choice of words, but I wouldn't make too much of that, to be quite frank.
You don't think that, the puppy connection, especially talking about Muslims,
no.
but also...
But you have to live in a South Asian context. You've been to South Asia. You have these puppies all over. This is something that is not foreign to the average person's imagination of what could happen.
Okay, now, let me welcome another guest, Mr. Pavan Khera, who's the political secretary to the Delhi Chief Minister, is with us on the phone. Mr. Khera, welcome to Access Point.
Thank you.
Mr. Khera, what we're talking about here is if BJP wins the next election and if Mr. Modi becomes the next Prime Minister of India, what would that mean for India's image worldwide, given his divisive image within India right now?
I'm sure the image of India is too large to be affected by anyone, including Mr. Modi. But our self-image, our esteem in our own eyes, I'm afraid will not be the same.
Let me ask you something. Do you think Prime Minister Manmohan Singh has been very active in trying to promote better diplomacy with Pakistan, reciprocated from the other side by Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif? Do you think something similar will happen in Mr. Modi's administration?
I'm afraid I'm not. I'm convinced that it will not be the same. Mr. Modi is very, very, very bad at forging coalitions within his own party, and forget international relationships. I'm sure he'll be very rigid the way he is in his politics, in his narrative. I don't see any flexibility.
Why do you say he's bad at forging coalitions? His party is standing behind him. He's their prime ministerial candidate.
His party is reluctantly and half-heartedly standing behind him. And we've seen his own political track record. Anybody who's opposed him is, has paid a price, to put it mildly.
Stay with us, Mr. Khera. We have Dr. Walter Anderson in studios with us. Dr. Anderson, half-heartedly standing behind him, BJP?
I would say that was true initially from the establishment. The reason he is the BJP candidate is because the cadre of the party, the lower levels of the party, were enthusiastically in favor of him. The establishment could not oppose him and didn't. They now stand behind him. And with, as they face two options, power or not power, they are almost certainly, as politicians, they want power. They will choose the power option. No, they weren't happy. Mr. Modi has never been an establishment person, either in his own state of Gujarat, where he's really run as his own person, which is somewhat unique about him and the party. This is a party that in the past has emphasized collegiality. And Mr. Modi is his own man. He's running as his person.
What do you think of the idea of what would Mr. Modi do vis-a-vis Pakistan? And how would it be different from the current administration?
Well, I agree with Mr. Pavan Khera that Indian policy is set by its own set of compulsions. And one has to remember that some of the best relations between India and Pakistan were under a previous BJP Prime Minister, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee. When in fact, the original talks were held as to a whole range of issues to improve the relationship, and after that you had the military coup in Pakistan. and so that those moves weren't able to sort of to take place. And we'll see now. You know, you have another prime minister in Pakistan who is a civilian, Mr. Nawaz Sharif, who has talked about better relations with India. It makes sense to have good relations with India. And they will deal, as we will, with whoever is prime minister.
Mr. Khera, as Dr. Walter Anderson said, previously during Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee's administration, relationships with Pakistan were particularly good. So why should this time be any different?
The difference between Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Mr. Narendra Modi is for everyone to see. Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was a secular mask of the BJP. Mr. Narendra Modi is the true face of the BJP. Is
he the true face of the BJP?
Well, I'm not sure what the true face, to be quite frank, is. The BJP is a changing organization. One, it's expanded enormously over the last 10 years as a political party with all sorts of interests that are now competing for within it in terms of policy.
Let me ask you, you've followed Indian and Hindu nationalism very closely. The BJP initially was a very Hindu nationalist party. They almost won, I mean, in the first term when Minister Modi was forced out after Gujarat and he ran again, he ran on a lot of rhetoric anti-Muslim. Do you think the BJP is morphing into more of a nationalist party now?
Well, if you take his campaign, he's been very careful in his campaign not to avoid communal issues and to focus on issues of governance, issues of growth, issues of corruption, those sorts of things. You know, what will be the long-term impact? I think it's somewhat difficult to really predict at this point. Certainly his campaign hasn't indicated that. I met him this summer, and in fact, I asked him specifically about a question like that, and he compared his state with two other very large states in India as to the level of violence and communal incidents, and they were significantly lower than in any of those two states, both not run by the BJP.
Mr. Pavan Khera, what do you say to this, that the BJP in general has morphed, and particularly Mr. Modi has been very careful in becoming and branding himself as non-communal? He said that he's for nationalism, but he's a patriot.
I would say these are coalition compulsions. If he has to attract the coalition partners to forge alliances before elections and to gain acceptability amongst them, he needs to talk the language he's talking. But I know for a fact that this is a language which will change after elections.
But the coalition will be a necessity after the election. Your government, the Congress government, was a coalition government. So why would this language change after the elections?
Because Mr. Modi, beyond the point, will also need to continue taking support from the RSS, which controls the politics of BJP increasingly. And the RSS would not accept this language once the BJP and if the BJP comes to power.
Dr. Anderson?
I don't know if that will be the case or not. So far, the RSS leadership, which was not all that happy with Mr. Modi initially, or in Gujarat, in the last elections, one has to keep in mind the RSS did not actually work for Mr. Modi in his campaign. They didn't work against him, but they didn't work enthusiastically for him, in part because of his mode of operating. He operates on his own, not collegially, which is what they feel should happen. So something very unique has happened, and also in the BJP-RSS relationship, because of the support of the RSS members, overwhelming support for Mr. Modi. It's a question now as to whether the head of the RSS in India has the same kind of political power that he might have had before. He certainly didn't, his predecessor didn't have that power of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee, because Atal Bihari Vajpayee, when he was prime minister, because he had seniority in the larger organization. That's not true with Mr. Modi, but Mr. Modi has a kind of massive grassroots support that changes the equation. And I think we have to see how this spells its way out, because we may be observing something very unique and different taking place.
Now, Mr. Khera, some people suggest, and I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but it's obviously suggested that peace between India and Pakistan will happen when there's a military dictatorship in Pakistan and a BJP government in India, because those are the only parties that can take the really hard decisions. What would you say to that?
No, even during Mr. Vajpayee's regime, we saw what happened. The Kargil happened during his regime. So the talks, the Agra summit was not, it culminated into Kargil. So I don't agree with that.
Dr. Anderson, do you think that Congress Party and a civilian government in Pakistan are ready to take the decisions which will alienate some of their core support in their countries?
Well, I think that, you know, what both governments have is they now have a compulsion to move closer for economic reasons. Both governments will put the economic agenda at the top. Both have been doing so, and Nawaz Sharif, in his initial statement after the elections, made it very clear economic growth is going to be at the top of his agenda, and that includes relations with India. The same is going to be true in India. A major plank of the BJP is that growth has plummeted in India and has affected the issue of jobs. If in fact they form the government, that's going to be at the top of their agenda as well.
And you think that because both governments would want better trade relationships, that it will automatically impact the other kinds of relationships?
Absolutely.
Mr. Khera, what would you say to that? The economic record of Congress Party is one of the reasons why this election's become so difficult for them.
I'm sure Dr. Anderson would agree with me. There are these non-state actors in Pakistan, and in case the BJP wins, there would be RSS as a non-state actor here. And the non-state actors would not really be interested in the economic agenda as much as their own agenda.
Dr. Anderson, he's raised an interesting point, and I've heard people talking about that, which is if the non-state actors do something, if we have another Mumbai or another parliament or even something low level like the LOC, Manmohan Singh administration was very calm and very calculated in its response. A Modi administration may not be so.
I don't know. That's the fact. Mr. Vajpayee was relatively calm, but there's a difference, as Mr. Khera mentioned, between Mr. Vajpayee and Mr. Modi. What would his response be? There would be a popular outcry for action. In fact, one of the great fears of the U.S. and other governments is that this happened. It's a fear of the Pakistani government that this happened, as a matter of fact, because there would be an outcry in India.
As there was after Mumbai.
And there was, yes. And in fact, there was great pressure to do something. Then the government of India acted in what I think was a very admirable, restrained manner. Could it do so again? That depends on a couple of things. It depends on the level of the violence and to the extent that one could see, could identify it coming from Pakistan. And the other thing is if there's any credible information that it has any kind of linkage to Pakistan military intelligence.
Do you think that there'll be any difference between how a Modi administration responds versus how the Manmohan administration responded?
Superficially, one could say yes, but I'm not sure that's a fact. It depends on lots of things. Indian foreign policy, like foreign policy in the United States, doesn't change a lot from administration to administration because there are other factors that shape what it's going to do. So, as I say, I think a lot for whoever is in charge, a lot depends on the circumstances of the kind of attack that you mentioned.
Do you see any similarity between Tea Party and the Republican Party in US and the RSS and BJP in India? I'm just curious.
Tea Party, you know, generally tends to support the notion of limited government. I'm not sure that one could say the same is true of the RSS. The political and cultural contexts of the two countries are so different. I'm always wary of those kinds of comparisons because there are, you know, one could punch holes in arguments to say that there are some superficial grounds to say that there's a similarity, but by and large, it's not a useful comparison.
Mr. Khera, since I have you on the phone with me here, let me ask you, what do you think are the chances of your party for winning the next elections?
I am quite confident about people seeing through the rhetoric of Mr. Modi's narrative. And, I've been following Mr. Modi's speeches. I've researched over 100 speeches of his. Not one speech has a concrete suggestion, a concrete solution. He's all about criticizing, all about projecting himself. It's individualizing the narrative the way it was never done before. So I'm sure people of India are matured, they're wise, and they'll see through this rhetoric. And I'm very confident that Congress will come back to power. The UPA will come back to power.
Some might say, though, that Mr. Modi has a track record of economic growth in Gujarat, while your leader, Rahul Gandhi, who's leading the party in these elections, doesn't have any record at all.
Let's talk about Modi first. Gujarat was doing well despite Mr. Modi, much before Mr. Modi. The people of Gujarat are born entrepreneurs. It's a very rich state. It's resource rich, and people are very progressive there. So I don't think we can give the credit of Gujarat's development to Mr. Modi. Coming to the Congress party, Dr. Manmohan Singh is the Prime Minister. He's one of the best economists in the world. Mr. Rahul Gandhi is the Vice President of the party. Mrs. Sonia Gandhi is the President of the party. Collectively, they are leading the party to the elections. And the track record of UPA 2 is what should be compared with any other track record, whether it's Gujarat or Mr. Modi's track record. You cannot compare Mr. Rahul Gandhi's track record as a Vice President of the party with Narendra Modi's track record as a Chief Minister. It's an unfair comparison.
But we can compare the track record of your administration nationally to the track record of Mr. Modi while he was a Chief Minister. Both are executive posts.
Most certainly, yes, you can compare.
And would you say that your party did well economically in the last administration?
Under the current global situation, I'm sure we did as best as we could do. And no economy lives in isolation these days. These are times of globalization. I don't think we can blame any government, any country for the mess the world is in. So we are all interdependent. So I don't know how we can blame UPA 2 for the economic mess.
Dr. Anderson?
On the comparison of the administration.
And he said that Gujarat was doing well despite Mr. Modi, not because of him.
It was doing well. I mean, Gujarat has a reputation of a state whose people have traditionally been entrepreneurs. They're around the world. You find Gujaratis doing business and doing business well. I think Mr. Modi was able to enhance that by his policies. He and a handful of other chief ministers, including the chief minister for which Mr. Pavan Khera works, Sheila Dixit, have been very good chief ministers in running their own states. I'd say there are about 6 or 7 of them in India. And they've been good because they're hands-on. And I think that's where he has demonstrated a capacity which some of his predecessors did not have, and that hands-on the bureaucracy to make sure that things worked. There are some Congress people in that category, such as Mr. Pavan Khera's boss, and there are BJP in that category. It really extends across party, and the issue now is that also be the case at the center.
And what do you think of India's economic record in the last administration? I mean, that's why a lot of Indians have kind of become disillusioned, because they feel that their economy is not growing the way it should, and it's not trickling down the way it should.
Well, absolute statistically, it is true. I mean, there's a debate whether it's going to be at 4 or 4.5 in the fiscal year. It should be high, in fact, has to be higher. Most economists I know say the economy has to grow at 7 to 8% in order to have any significant impact on poverty rates, and also to ensure that infrastructure construction goes on at the sufficient rate it's supposed to. So it will have to come up. And the question is, who can do a better job in doing it? Of course, the two political parties, as all political parties, one says they will, and one says
the other says
the other says will. So a lot depends on who does the better job in public relations on this.
Let me ask you something. I want to come to Afghanistan. 2014 is going to be a very critical year. The US and NATO forces are going to withdraw from Afghanistan. Some people suggest that the problems in Afghanistan are mostly due to the India-Pakistan rivalry and the possible proxy war that will ensue there. What do you think a Modi administration's impact will be on that?
Well, the Indian policy, which is very interesting on Afghanistan, is to have a strong Indian presence there. It has one of its largest aid programs, $4 to $5 billion, larger if you count the purchasing power value of that in Afghanistan. They have a relatively large Indian assistance program in addition to that, and a training program for Afghan diplomats and military officers. They intend to stay.
Right.
That is a given. That will be any administration, whether it be Mr. Modi as the head of government or a congressperson as the head of government. So that's not going to be much different. Now, so in terms of that issue, Afghanistan is going to be an important Indian consideration, whoever is in charge.
Whoever's in charge.
And I think that, you know, the smart thing to do would be for Mr. Nawaz Sharif and whoever the next Indian Prime Minister is to get together to make sure it does not develop, because that will harm both and will harm Pakistan more.
Mr. Khera, do you see Indian foreign policy as continuing as is, or do you see any changes if the administration changes?
I would like to believe that foreign policy is insulated from changes, political changes domestically. But having said that, I'm afraid Mr. Modi's communal brand of politics will influence our international relations. So far, international affairs do impact domestic politics, but with Mr. Modi around, it will be vice versa.
Why would it be vice versa? Do you even, Dr. Anderson, do you foresee anything like that, or do you think it's more of a political statement because Mr. Khera is from Congress Party?
Foreign policies of big countries like India tend to be set by compulsions much stronger than the individual. And that is the case, for example, look at the U.S. U.S. foreign policy has had a remarkable continuity. There have been complaints that, you know, that this administration is not as active as it should be. But if you look specifically at what's happening, the continuity on almost every major issue is there.
Although some people argue that U.S.'s foreign policy is influenced a lot more by its domestic considerations than it should be.
Policy always has a certain impact. I mean, domestic issues always have a certain impact, normally a restraining impact on foreign policy. So yes, there is some. In fact, the compulsions that lead countries in certain directions are domestically oriented. And what are they in the Indian case? They have to grow the economy. That they know. Every political figure knows that not only is this necessary for jobs, but the Indian voter is looking for candidates who can promise in a meaningful way an economy which will give them jobs.
And do you think the same will happen with China? India is trying to increase its trade with China, and that'll just continue as it's happening now?
Yes.
Okay. And so basically we're looking at an India that domestically might be different, but internationally will be viewed the same, or will it have any impact on India's image as a secular, inclusive democracy?
There is a certain PR issue at stake, but if Mr. Modi, I think this assumption of your question, were the Prime Minister, would it have a significant negative impact? I don't think so. And if I look at the campaign that he's running now, I think you're going to see that reflected in the foreign policy of the country as well.
Mr. Khera, if Mr. Modi is successful, as Dr. Anderson suggests, in rebranding himself, how do you think will it be difficult for your party in the next elections?
The kind of pulls the RSS has and will continue to have, I'm afraid I would not agree with the hypothesis that Mr. Modi will succeed in rebranding himself. You know, if you go by the center left and center image, you cannot occupy the space which Congress has already occupied for the last 135 years. Just as the Congress cannot rebrand itself as communal, the BJP certainly cannot rebrand itself as secular.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Pavan Khera, the Political Secretary of the Delhi Chief Minister, and Dr. Walter Anderson, a South Asia expert who's now with the Johns Hopkins University, but he's been a senior State Department official in South Asia. And thank you for watching us. Our time today is up, but please leave your questions, comments, suggestions on our Facebook pages, or tweet us, or in general, get in touch with us and tell us what you think. Looking forward to seeing you again next week for another episode of Access Point.